So let's talk about a modern-day paradox, the story of Israel. We're talking about a nation that's smaller than some US states, yet its influence in technology, intelligence, and military might, well, it makes waves all over the world. How did a country with so little become so incredibly powerful? Let's dive in.
Okay, so to really get a handle on Israel's power, you have to start with what's called the Israeli paradox. It's this series of contradictions that just don't seem to make any sense on the surface.
All right, first up, let's just wrap our heads around the size. Israel is, well, it's tiny. Geographically, you could fit it inside the state of New Jersey. It's smaller than Indian states like Manipur or Haryana. We're looking at a little sliver of land right there on the Mediterranean coast. And it's not just the land, right? It's the population, too. With fewer than 10 million people, it's just dwarfed by most other countries. So that really deepens the question. How does a country this small project so much power onto the world stage? And this right here, this is one of the craziest contradictions of all. Israel was basically born in the desert. It has almost no natural water to speak of, and yet somehow it has become a global powerhouse in agriculture, exporting billions of dollars worth of food. They didn't just stumble upon water, they literally engineered solutions from scratch, making the desert bloom. And this is a theme you're going to see over and over, turning a massive disadvantage into a strategic strength. So this all leads us to the big question, the one we're really digging into today. How on earth did a small nation, forged in conflict, with almost no natural resources, become this global giant? The answer isn't just in what happened last year or 50 years ago. No, it's a story that goes back thousands of years. You see, the roots of modern Israel's power, they're not in some modern strategy document. They're in an ancient story, a 3,500-year-old dream of a people and their connection to a homeland. And if you don't understand that history, you really can't understand what's happening today. So for about 1,000 years, ancient Jewish kingdoms called this place home. But look at this timeline. This land has been a revolving door of empires for centuries. It was conquered and ruled by one power after another. We're talking the Romans, Arab caliphates, the Ottomans, and then finally the British after World War I. And through all this time, the Jewish people were scattered across the globe in what's known as the diaspora. So you might be wondering, how does a group of people stay connected for almost 2,000 years when they're scattered all over the globe? Well, it came down to a powerful idea, an ideology called Zionism. And it's more than just politics. It's this deeply woven cultural and religious belief that one day they would return to that ancestral land and rebuild their nation. And then that long-held dream got a horrific jolt of urgency from one of the darkest moments in human history, the Holocaust. The systematic murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazis in Europe created this undeniable, desperate need for a safe place, a national home where they could finally be secure. And so it happened. May 14th, 1948, the State of Israel is declared. But here's the thing. The celebration was short-lived. The dream of a homeland crashed headfirst into the reality of survival. The nation was literally born into a war, surrounded by neighbors who completely rejected its right to exist. And that threat, right from day one, forged the very first pillar of its power, an intelligence network unlike any other. Israel knew, right from its very first day, that a regular army wouldn't be enough. To survive, it needed an unseen shield. It needed eyes and ears deep inside enemy territory. This absolute necessity led to the creation of one of the world's most feared and effective intelligence agencies, Mossad. So if you really want to understand Mossad, you got to look at one of their most legendary operations, Adolf Eichmann. He was a key architect of the Holocaust, and after World War II, he just disappeared, vanished into thin air along with thousands of other Nazis. He was one of the most wanted men on the planet. Just pause and think about that challenge for a second. You're a brand new country, you don't have a lot of resources. How on earth do you find one guy hiding under a fake name, probably on a totally different continent, a decade after the war ended? This was the massive task facing the young Mossad. Well, this is how they pulled it off. It was just a masterclass in intelligence work. After years and years of hitting dead ends, Mossad finally tracked him to Argentina. In 1960, a team of agents literally grabbed him off a street in Buenos Aires, held him in a safe house, and then smuggled him out of the country on a commercial flight. They disguised him as a crew member and flew him to Israel to stand trial. The Argentinian government had no idea it was even happening. And that single operation tells you everything you need to know about Mossad's philosophy. It's not just about collecting information, it's about taking action. Their guiding principle is often called kill and flee. The point isn't just to take out a threat. It's to create this chilling, terrifying message that no enemy of Israel is safe, no matter where they hide in the world.
Okay, so you've got this incredible intelligence agency, this unseen shield. But that's not enough to protect your country, right? That same constant threat that created Mossad also demanded a seriously powerful military, and that's the second pillar of Israel's power. But Israel's approach was different. They decided to build their army not on sheer numbers, but on technology and a relentless drive to be self-sufficient. See, in the early days, Israel had to rely on other countries like France for its weapons, and that turned out to be a huge problem. During the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, an arms embargo was suddenly slapped on them. Now, Israel ended up winning that war, but it was an absolutely brutal wake-up call. The lesson was crystal clear. To survive, you can never, ever depend on anyone else for your defense. You have to do it yourself.
So, how did they do it? They went all in on research and development. Just look at this chart to see what I mean. Israel invests around 4.5% of its entire GDP in R&D. That's way more than even the United States. And since a huge chunk of that money goes straight into defense, it created this powerful engine for military innovation. And this obsession with having the best tech didn't stop with tanks and jets. It went digital. In the world of cyber warfare, Israel is an absolute giant. The most famous case, of course, is Stuxnet. Back in 2009, Iran's nuclear program suddenly started having problems. Their centrifuges, the machines they need to enrich uranium, just started spinning wildly out of control and destroying themselves. It wasn't a bomb, it was a piece of code, a super smart computer virus that got inside and turned Iran's own technology against itself. Yep, Stuxnet, this digital ghost, reportedly built by Israel and the US, had infiltrated Iran's most secure nuclear facilities. It wrecked their program, setting it back by years. This is the new face of warfare. It was a massive strategic victory, and it was won without a single shot ever being fired. Now, here's where things get really interesting. All that money and brainpower poured into military tech, it had this incredible side effect. It created a super highly trained workforce and a culture of innovation that started to spill out into the regular economy. And that became the foundation for the third and final pillar of Israel's power, an economic beast built not on oil or minerals, but on pure human brainpower. Want proof? Just look at the NASDAQ stock exchange. As you can see here, if you take out US companies, the country with the most companies listed isn't Germany or Japan, it's China. And right on its heels is tiny Israel. This unbelievable concentration of tech companies is why people call it Silicon Wadi. It's a direct competitor to America's Silicon Valley. So how did this happen? Well, it was a whole ecosystem. First, all the big tech players, Apple, Google, Intel, you name it, they set up huge R&D centers there to get access to the talent. That, in turn, fueled this crazy startup culture, giving Israel the most startups per person in the entire world. And finally, they pointed all that innovation at their biggest problems, like having no water. This led to world-changing breakthroughs in things like desalination, turning a national crisis into a multi-billion-dollar global export industry. They didn't just find resources, they invented them. So when you put it all together, Mossad's global reach, a high-tech military that doesn't rely on anyone, and the economic powerhouse of Silicon Wadi, you get a totally new model for what makes a country powerful. It's a power that has less to do with how big you are and everything to do with how smart your strategy is. And that leaves us with a final, really important question for our time. In a world that runs on technology, what happens when your oldest enemies suddenly need to buy your newest inventions? That paradox, that's not just Israel's story anymore. It's a force that is changing global politics as we speak.